Empress Solaria's crest flared crimson as she slammed her taloned fist onto the obsidian dais, the chamber's holographic borders flickering in protest. If this diplomacy crumbles, the Vexari hordes will reclaim the outer jump gates, Basal systems will fracture like brittle alloy, and the Imperium's armada will bleed in endless border skirmishes we cannot afford. Her voice echoed through the Grand Synod Hall, a thunderclap that silenced the rustle of robes and the low hum of data orbs orbiting the High Council seats. The assembled lords shifted, their iridescent scales catching the vaulted light, High Chancellor Varun foremost among them, his narrow eyes glinting with calculated restraint. Solaria swept her gaze across them, her 4 primary limbs coiled in regal poise, the sacred rite's golden filaments pulsing along her neck ridges. She had returned from the frontier campaigns mere cycles ago, her armada victorious but scarred, only to find the court mired in this necessity. Humans. The word soured in her secondary mouth, unspoken. In the days that followed, her public addresses hammered the point home. From the spires of Kar Prime broadcast to every provincial governor and fleet captain, Solaria proclaimed Karan supremacy with unyielding formality. Our sacred lineages have forged empires across the void, she declared in one transmission, her image towering over colony feeds. While Terran customs, quaint skirmishes and fragile pacts, warrant no disruption to our protocols, the court feeds captured her dismissive flick of a mandible, a gesture that rippled through conservative channels like a balm. Varun's faction nodded approval in private hullos, their missives praising her stance even as they whispered of better domestic matches. Yet the High Council convened in closed session that eve, the air thick with ionized tension from the central arbiter sphere. Varun rose first, his robes whispering like dry leaves. Empress, the jump gate relays falter without Terran calibration tech. Our engineers confirm. Isolation invites collapse. The treaty demands a binding alliance, a consort from their protectorate, to seal the gate's sovereignty. Solaria's crest dimmed to amber, irritation coiling in her gut vents. Personal choice? This was duty incarnate, forced by the very council she commanded. A political marriage, she echoed, voice a silken blade, to primitives who stumble through stars on jury-rigged drives. Murmurs rose. Agreement from the conservatives, uneasy silence from the pragmatists. Her flaw gnawed, pride in Karan purity, a dynasty untainted, now bartered for stability. But the Armada's logs were clear. Without those gates, Vexari raiders would gut the flanks. She inclined her head, duress masked, as resolve. For the Imperium's endurance, I accept. Preparations accelerated. Dossiers flooded her private nexus. Commander Jonah Hale, Terran envoy, listed as ceremonial spouse and minor military attaché. A former soldier, per the scans, broad-shouldered biped, unremarkable vitals, no noble bloodlines. Solaria dismissed the hollows with a claw swipe. A figurehead, she murmured to her aides, to wear the rights bands and fade into protocol. The investiture dawned in the eternal vault, crystal spires refracting dawnlight into prismatic blades across the thronged court. Thousands packed the tiers, governors in jeweled harnesses, armada captains with plasma scars etched into their hides, Varun at the forefront, his posture a study in poised opposition. Solaria descended the central dais in full regalia, her primary limbs bearing the right blade and concord orb, secondary arms weaving the binding sigils. The human delegation entered opposite, Hale at their fore, clad in stark Terran blacks, his posture erect but unpretentious, eyes scanning the vault with quiet assessment. Protocol commenced. Attendants chanted the ancient litanies, orbs aligning for the gate seal invocation. Solaria extended the right blade for the first exchange. Hale was to mirror with the offered gauntlet, per the adapted rites. But the human paused, brow furrowing. A murmur stirred. Varun's crest twitched in anticipation of embarrassment. Empress, Hale said, voice steady through the translator node, stepping forward unbidden. He did not bow deeply, merely inclined his head, a Terran courtesy, per briefings. The sequence inverts here. If the gauntlet precedes the blade touch, the sigils cascade prematurely, invalidating the gate bind before witnesses. Solaria's vents tightened. Who was this attaché to interject? Her lead protocolist hissed confirmation via private link, a subtle variance in the hybrid rite, overlooked in haste. The court leaned in, scales rasping. Varun's eyes narrowed to slits, his claws flexing. Hale extended the gauntlet first, precise. then touched the blade's emitter. Sigils bloomed correctly, hollows stabilizing in emerald harmony. No faux pas. No shattered treaty on debut. Solaria retracted the blade, her crest flickering neutral as she completed the weave. Competence from a dossier footnote? Uneasy attention rippled outward. Whispers chased Varun's faction, captains exchanging glances. The human had not boasted, merely acted, reading the rite's flow where Karan experts had skimmed. The ceremony sealed without further hitch. Hale affixed the consort band to his wrist, a simple alloy circlet dwarfed on his frame, his expression one of quiet focus rather than awe. Solaria noted it. No wide-eyed deference, just professional poise. Her secondary mouth clicked softly, irritation laced with reluctant curiosity. Post-rite, in the shadowed alcove off the vault, advisors swarmed. Varun led, voice of velvet barb. Empress, reconsider. This correction invites questions of our mastery. Sign the alliance charter now, and whispers grow. Karan rights diluted by Terran meddling. A domestic consort preserves purity. The gates can be renegotiated. Others chimed, governors citing vassal unrest, protocolists fretting sigil echoes. Solaria's limbs tensed. The weight of Armada dispatches heavy in her nexus. Vexari probes already testing flanks. Duty clashed with impulse. Dismiss the human, reclaim unalloyed strength? No. Stability demanded the gates. Detect. The pact. She strode to the charter plinth, Hale a silent shadow at protocol distance. The orb hovered, her talon pierced the sealant. For the Imperium's continuity, she intoned, voice cracking formality's edge just enough for her inner circle to hear the steel beneath. Ink bloomed digital across the hollows. Treaty law. Varun's crest wilted fractionally, his withdrawal a coiled retreat. Hale met her gaze briefly as attendants dispersed. No triumph in his eyes, merely a nod. Gate relays hold firm now, Empress. Joint calibrations start at dawn. She tilted her head, mandibles parting in measured reply. See that your insights prove as steady. Propriety held, but concession lingered. First fracture in her dismissive armor. The court watched, Varun's faction already plotting holos, while Armada captains murmured of the human's unflinching red. Solaria turned toward her spires, the returned sovereign now bound to an unexpected equal in the shadows of alliance. High Chancellor Varun's voice sliced through the grand atrium like a vibroblade. His crest flared in ritual challenge as he knelt before the throne dais. Empress Solaria, sacred vessel of the Karan bloodline, I beseech you to consider House Curve's heir, Lord Thalor, pure lineage proven in the Void Wars, untainted by off-world dilutions. Bind with him, and the Imperium endures unbroken. His words rippled outward, igniting murmurs from the clustered courtiers. Mandibles clicked in approval from the conservative flank, their iridescent robes shifting like oil on water. Solaria's grip tightened on the arm of her throne, the crystal inlays cool against her primary claws. She had anticipated this thrust. The Rune's faction had simmered since the Terran ship's docking, but the timing stung. Fresh on the heels of Jonah Hale's quiet correction in the relay chamber, her court divided visibly now. Curve loyalists clustering to Varun's left, Armada captains holding neutral to her right, and the human consort standing solitary at the chamber's edge, his posture unchanging amid the alien tide. High Chancellor, she replied, her tone a velvet blade. House Curve's valor is etched in our annals, yet the Terran Accord addresses threats your rival match ignores. The coalition skirmishes at the fringe where Curve fleets faltered. Varun's crest twitched, a flicker of outrage, but she pressed on. Propriety her shield. The dynasty risks not dilution but isolation. The chamber hummed with tension, hollows flickering to life above the dais, projections of bloodline purity charts, Terran worlds marked as barbaric outliers. Varun rose smoothly, his secondary arms gesturing to amplify the split. Existential risk, my Empress. A human consort mocks the sacred rites. Our provinces already whisper of diluted heirs, governors withholding tribute. Thalor unites us, blood to blood. Cheers erupted from his block, a wave crashing against her authority. While Jonah's eyes met hers briefly across the expanse, steady, unreadable. She felt the fracture deepen, her initial dismissal of him as mere ceremony now a vulnerability Varun exploited. As the session dissolved into sidelong alliances, Solaria summoned Jonah via private comm, her voice clipped through the implant. Honor Guard Captain. A nominal post, sufficient to station you near without court sway. Report to the Vanguard spire at dawn. She watched him approach the dais alone, Terran frame unbowed amid the dispersing Karan, his uniform stark against their jeweled finery. He halted at the prescribed distance, inclining his head with that infuriating Terran economy. No flourish, no deference beyond measure, accepted Empress. With the rank, I'd request armory access for guard calibration, and engineering deck clearance for system familiarization. His words hung direct, no plea woven in, as if such boons were routine. Solaria's mandibles parted fractionally, surprise coiling in her secondary gut. Armory, engineering, posts for honor guards were ceremonial, blades dulled by tradition, yet his prior relay fix lingered in her mind. An offhand sequence tweak amid protocol drone. Granted, she said, masking the concession. But tread as shadow, Commander Hale. The court watches for weakness. He nodded once, turning without flourish, and she wondered at the calm efficiency, so unlike Karan layers of implication. Dawn bled crimson through the viewport as the protocol rehearsal convened in the Eternity Vault. A cavernous hall lined with dormant defense relays, their crystalline matrices pulsing faintly under ancestral seals. Solaria oversaw from the elevated dais, her robes heavy with right threads, courtiers and armada aides arrayed in precise formation. Jonah stood at her flank as new captain, blade sheathed, eyes scanning the sequence hollows projected across the vault floor. Varun lurked at the periphery, his presence a thorn. The rehearsal commenced, attendants intoning the binding chant, steps sinking to activate the vault's perimeter wards, a ceremonial lockstep unchanged since the founding. Mid-sequence, a relay flickered erratically, its matrix whining low, drawing hisses from the technicians. Solaria tensed. A glitch here could cascade, dishonoring the Alliance right tomorrow. Jonah stepped forward unbidden, voice low but carrying. Empress, the cadence, shift the third pivot left by 12 degrees, sync with the secondary pulse. He demonstrated with a subtle foot placement, no grand gesture, just adjustment. The lead attendant hesitated, mandibles quivering but mirrored it. The relay hummed steady, matrix blooming full azure, stabilized dormant defenses online for the first time in cycles. Gasps rippled. A technician's crest collapsed in shock, claws fumbling data slates. Impossible, one muttered, rote-locked for centuries. Solaria's primary vision sharpened on Jonah, who resumed position as if mending relays were guard duty. Pattern recognition, she realized. Humans juggled such intuitively, where Karan drilled by codex. Full systems audit, she commanded, voice ringing. Engineering deck, now. Captain Hale oversees. Varun's glare burned, but she held firm, the court's eyes on her unyielding poise. In the vault's echo, as techs swarmed the consoles, Solaria annotated the audit hollows publicly, her seal flashing empire-wide via fleet channels. Priority imperative, human oversight sanctioned. Ceremony pauses for integrity, she broadcast, defending the halt before murmurs could fester. Practical evidence demands scrutiny. Alliance endures through strength, not haste. Her stance shifted inwardly, from dismissive novelty to cautious regard. Jonah's correction wasn't flair, it bridged oversight her own drilled experts missed. Propriety cracked just enough. She signaled him closer post-rehearsal. Your read stabilizes more than relays, Captain. Explain the pivot. He met her gaze levelly, humble in delivery. Observed the pulse lag during prep scans, common in phased arrays. Humans train across disciplines, it patterns across. No boast, just fact. Multitasking his guard scan even now. She nodded, mandibles clicking approval despite herself, the personal thread weaving amid political coils. By midday, unrest bloomed. Anonymous manifestos flooded marketplaces and fleet nets, holo pamphlets accusing her of blood betrayal, branding the Terran Link dynasty poison. Jonah's image warped as alien taint. Projections smeared vault walls and lower spires. Curve blood or Quran fall. Crowds gathered in the trade plazas, provincial feeds amplifying Varun's echoes. Armada captains querying her directly. Legitimacy tested. Solaria strode the command bridge, Jonah at her side per new post, as she quelled a live dissent hollow from Governor Lyric. The audit reveals strengths overlooked, she declared, her annotated orders glowing beside her. Humans adapt where we ritualize. Relay stabilization proves it. Unrest serves no imperium. Varun's counter-broadcast followed swift. a trail cloaked in tech tricks. But Captain's replies tilted, murmurs of Jonah's feet circulating, crests rising in reluctant curiosity. In the armory Jonah now accessed, he calibrated blades alongside Karen's smiths, enduring longer shifts without fatigue signal, chatting patterns across metallurgy and tactics. One smith crest low queried, "How see the pivot unbidden?" Jonah shrugged mid-grind, "Practice." "You hold alloys, we can't dream." Mutual nod. First bridge. Solaria watched via discrete feed, her caution hardening to scrutiny. Varun's faction split widened. Curve whispers frantic. But Jonah's quiet competence anchored her defense. Protocol's cold shell hid his correction, yet it unbalanced the court. Varun overreaching, her authority reframed. As spires dimmed to cycle end, she turned to him in private antechamber. "Your requests yield fruit, Captain. Guard this alliance as you mend relays." His reply, steady. "As ordered, Empress." Propriety held but respect kindled, duty evolving to partnership's edge, amid gathering storm. Solaria's ceremonial barge sliced through the nebular haze of the border veil, its gilded flanks humming with restraint fields. As the salvage dispute unfolded below, Kurvan patrol cutters swarmed a derelict Karan freighter, its hull breached and spilling ancient cargo into the void. Relics claimed by treaty as Imperium sovereign, yet contested by opportunistic Zathari scavengers. Her voice cut across the command deck, crisp through the translation lattice. "High Warden, enforce reclamation. No yields to border vermin." The High Warden's frills quivered in assent, mandibles clicking. "As commanded, Sovereign." Containment fields deploying. Drones detached from the barge in precise formation, escort feeds relaying crystal clarity. Zathari skiffs darting like flecks of rust, Karan Marines boarding with disciplined fury. Then the feeds stuttered. Static laced the primary projection, a subtle warp that no operator flagged, until secondary angles fractured into white noise. Alarms wailed, low and insistent. "Compromise detected," the Warden barked. "Zathari jamming protocols. Recommend abort and orbital strike." Solaria's crest flared, eyes narrowing on the flickering holos. The barge hung exposed, a glittering prize amid the skirmish, its ceremonial mass too ponderous for swift evasion. Varun's whispers from court echoed unbidden. "The human taints our vigilance." Jonah stood at her flank, his Terran frame unyielding in the formal consort robes, hands clasped behind his back as protocol demanded. Yet his gaze flicked to the console, jaw tightening imperceptibly. "Override the strike," Jonah said quietly, stepping forward without leave. His voice pierced the rising clamor, calm as void wind. Operators recoiled, frills splaying in outrage. "Captain Hale," the Warden snarled. "You overstep. This is Karan." "Empress," Jonah continued, ignoring the interruption, his fingers already dancing across an auxiliary panel he'd jury-rigged days prior during relay maintenance. "The feed compromise isn't Zathari. Patterns too clean. Repeating micropulses on escort drone 17s. Someone spoofing your signatures to draw a response. Reroute drone 12's auxiliary thrusters. It'll slingshot the barge clear while masking our vector." Solaria's pulse thrummed, authority warring with the audacity. "Dismiss him?" Protocol screamed yes. The human was ornament, not tactician, but his words layered atop the feed anomalies she'd glimpsed. The static's rhythm, unnatural, laced with intent. "Warden, stand down the strike. Execute his reroute." Protests erupted. Advisors' crests flaring crimson, mandibles gnashing. "Sovereign, this risks. Execute." Her command silenced them, steel beneath silk. Jonah's override locked in, drone 12 ignited, its improvised thrust vector yanking the barge sideways in a gravity-defying arc. The compromised escorts detonated in synchronized fury, plasma blooms that would have engulfed them. Instead, the barge sheared away, Marines securing the derelict below as Zathari skiffs scattered, unbloodied, but routed. The deck shuddered into stability. Solaria turned to Jonah, her gaze piercing. He met it steadily, wiping a bead of sweat with the back of his hand. Human tell of exertion, unremarked. "Fieldcraft from your briefings?" she asked, voice low amid the settling hum. "Training, Empress. Terran ops in contested zones. Drones like that. Predictable if you read the pulse ghosts. No boast, just fact, delivered with the humility of one reciting maintenance logs." Advisors crowded in as the barge docked at the reclamation outpost, their protests a rising tide. The humans' improvisation endangered the sovereign, the warden thundered. Frills rigid. Varun's council demands inquiry. He bypassed command lattice. Celeria raised a gauntleted hand, her presence compressing the chamber like a closing fist. Endangered, he preserved us. The ambush was no border squabble. Spoofed feeds, timed detonations. Zathari lacked such subtlety. Her crest held steady, unyielding, even as fatigue gnawed from cycle upon cycle of court strain. Propriety cracked just enough. A nod to Jonah, subtle acknowledgement amid the formality. Captain Hale's intervention merits record, not rebuke. The forensics team arrived under flickering outpost lights, their probes dissecting drone wreckage with mechanical precision. Celeria oversaw from the elevated dais, Jonah at her side, protocol now a shield for his proximity. Data streamed. Encrypted bursts traced to a noble house sigil, House Draven, rivals to her lineage, wedded to a human supremacist cell, broadcasting from uncharted fringe worlds. Not mere salvage thieves, the lead forensic intoned, its optics whirring, coordinated sabotage. Draven supplies the codes, humans the disruption tech, anti-alliance fanatics rejecting Terran protectorate's subservience. The treaty itself is the target. Murmurs rippled. Varun's faction would feast on this. Proof the human consort invited chaos. Celeria's mind raced. Draven's governors held provincial fleets, the supremacists shadowy but venomous, their rhetoric poisoning fringe colonies. Embarrass her here, force treaty rescission, and the Imperium fractured along old fault lines. She dismissed the advisors with a sweep of her crest. Seal this outpost. No leaks to the capital feeds, alone with Jonah in the secure alcove. The air hummed with unspent tension. His presence felt less ornamental now, solid, like the barge's core struts. Your instincts saved more than this vessel, she said, propriety thinning to a thread. Draven and these human radicals, they widen the storm. Jonah nodded, eyes scanning the alcove's readouts, ever multitasking, cross-referencing salvage manifests for anomalies. Their testing seams, Empress. Border disputes mask deeper plays. Terran intel flags similar patterns. Cells linking alien hardliners to our own extremists. Combined, they hit twice as hard. Curiosity overrode contempt, sharp as a blade's edge. Humans, frail by Karan measure, short-lived, yet this one wove drone overrides from routine access. Spotted spoofs where specialists faltered. Not savagery, but something forged in their endless skirmishes. Adaptability, reading chaos as script. Your Terran ops concealed depths, she murmured. Protocol deems you ceremonial, yet you act as field specialist? Attaché covers it, ma'am. Multi-role training, engineering, signals, extraction. Comes with the uniform. Humble deflection, no swell of pride, as if overriding Imperial drones were mere shift work. She signaled her personal cipher, a shadow operative materializing from the walls. Private inquiry. Captain Jonah Hale's full Terran dossier. Past deployments. Expertise matrices, discreet, no court eyes. The cipher bowed, vanishing. The Solaria turned back, her voice regaining regal distance, though the fracture lingered. Guard your insights closely, Captain. This alliance phrase, your capabilities may stitch it. He inclined his head, steady as ever. Understood. We'll need every thread. As the barge lifted toward the capital's spires, Celeria watched the border veil recede, the ambush's glow fading. Varun's coalition deepened, Draven's shadow lengthened, yet Jonah's quiet reroute lingered, a pivot from duty to potential parody. The ceremonial spouse was no bauble. He might be the keel holding her realm intact amid the gathering gale. Propriety held, but respect rooted deeper, partnership's first true bloom in storm-torn skies. High Chancellor Varun's voice sliced through the vaulted chamber like a vibroblade, his taloned fingers unfurling a crystalline scroll that hummed with archival light. By the third codex of succession, unearthed from the vaults of Elandor, any consort not of pure Karan blood voids the heir's claim to the throne. Empress, this Terran union imperils the dynasty itself. Celeria's crest flared subtly beneath her regal mantle, the chamber's assembled courtiers, conservative legalists in their rune-etched robes, provincial governors with eyes like polished obsidian. Leaning forward in a ripple of vindicated murmurs, she had anticipated opposition since the barge's docking, Varun's coalition swelling like a toxin in her veins. But this dormant statute struck at the alliance's root. Her gaze flicked to Jonah Hale, standing silent at her flank in his Terran attaché uniform, its stark lines a deliberate contrast to the Imperium's flowing silks. He met her eyes with that unflinching calm, no trace of the ambush's shadow lingering from the border veil. "High Chancellor," she intoned, her voice a cascade of Imperial steel. "The Imperium's laws are not relics to be wielded as weapons by the opportunistic. Present your evidence fully, or withdraw." Varun's mandibles clicked in satisfaction as holographic projections bloomed, ancient glyphs scrolling, affirming the statute's antiquity, predating even the Armada's unification wars. The legalists nodded gravely, one murmuring of precedents unassailed for millennia. Celeria felt the political lattice tightening, governors whispering of fractured loyalties, the air thick with the scent of fermented spore wine and mounting schism. To yield now would embolden Draven's shadows. To press without recourse invited chaos. As the session dissolved into ritual recess, Jonah leaned close, his voice a low murmur masked by the chamber's echoing footfalls. "Empress, permission to access the auxiliary archives? I have some familiarity with layered legal structures from Terran Accords." She arched a brow ridge, propriety bidding her dismiss the notion. Humans meddled in Quran rights at peril, but the barge's pivot lingered in her mind, his reroute a thread of competence amid peril, but swiftly. "Varun will not slumber." He nodded once, vanishing into the shadowed alcoves where data spires pulsed with forgotten lore. Celeria retired to her sanctum, the weight of the spires pressing through crystal panes, her advisor's reports stacking like storm clouds, provincial unrest, Armada patrols strained. Hours bled into the dimming cycle, her crest itching with unspent tension. When Jonah returned, a slim data crystal in hand, his posture unbowed despite the archive's labyrinthine demands, the consort conferral provision, buried in the 9th appendix of the 2nd Codex, he said, projecting the text with a deft wrist flick. Glyphs swirled, cross-referenced with precision that made her archivist drones seem ponderous. "It allows a sovereign to confer provisional standing upon a non-Karan consort through a public arbitration, witnessed oaths, tactical demonstrations of loyalty, preserves your heirs line intact while elevating my role to legal parity. No disqualification." Celeria traced the provisions, her mind mapping the lattice. Varun's statute countered, not by denial but by invocation of a superior right. Jonah had navigated the codice's fractal branches, languages shifting mid-verse, precedents nested like fractals, in a fraction of the time her scholars required.
"How did you?"
She halted, propriety reasserting, but curiosity cracked the facade. Humans parsed patterns thus, no arrogance in his stance, merely quiet efficacy, as if sifting archaic law were akin to field repairs. "It aligns with hybrid treaty frameworks I've handled," he replied simply, eyes on the projection. Cross-domain links, succession mirroring command hierarchies, took some adaptation to the glyph shifts. Adaptation, the word resonated. Her scholars toiled in rote devotion, yet this human bridged disparate realms without strain. Respect coiled deeper, unbidden. "Then we invoke it. I will schedule the arbitration at dawn's right. You will address the tribunal, under formal constraints. No weapons, no aids. Truth oaths binding. Prove the conferral's merit, Commander, and we hold the keel steady." His nod was firm, a pact sealed in shared resolve. "Understood, Empress." Dawn's right bathed the Grand Tribunal in auroral glow, the antechamber oppressive robes and armored guards, courtiers murmuring like a hive roused. Celeria strode the processional, Jonah at her precise flank, the air humming with tension, Varen's faction dominant, legalists chanting the disqualifying statute as gospel. She had chosen this public forge deliberately, controlled, witnessed by holocams broadcasting Imperium-wide, forcing the coalition to bend or shatter openly. As they neared the vaulted doors, a shadow detached from the throng, a cloaked figure, provincial insignia glinting, lunging with a monofilament dagger whispering toward Jonah's throat. The blade's hum cut the air, courtiers scattering in shrieks. Time fractured. Celaria's command roared forth, crest blazing crimson. "Lock down!" Guards to the consort, priority alpha. Palace sentinels surged, plasma lances humming to life, pinning the assassin in a containment field as he thrashed, mandibles foaming with fanatic zeal. Jonah sidestepped fluidly, not flinching, his hand intercepting the wrist with trained precision. A Terran grapple, disarming without excess force. The dagger clattered, neutralized, chaos reigned. Guards hauling the wretch, scanners whirring for accomplices, Varun's face a mask of feigned shock amid the legalists' outrage. "Empress!" a governor bellowed. "This Terran draws violence to our sacred hall. The statute demands his immediate excision." Solaria's voice thundered, overriding the din as she positioned herself between Jonah and the tribunal's looming arch, her mantle swirling like a storm front. "No indictment without my sovereign writ. The attempt proves the stakes, not his fault. We proceed to arbitration, now. The conferral provision supersedes your unearthed relic, Chancellor Varun. Challenge it here, under truth oaths, or yield." The chamber hushed, her authority a gravitational force pulling fractious orbits into line. Jonah stood ready beside her, breath steady, scanning the crowd with that pattern-reading gaze, spotting a second cloaked figure melting into shadows, alerting a guard with a subtle gesture. Guards converged, another conspirator netted, whispers rippled. He saw it undidden. Like a seer without rights, Varun rose, taloned hands flexing, his coalition's momentum cracking under the lockdown's glare. "This outrage delays true justice, Empress. The human's presence invites loyalty's test," she cut in, eyes locking his, which he has begun passing, even in peril. "Tribunal, convene. Let the codicy speak, and witnesses behold." As the doors ground open, Solaria felt the shift, propriety's shell fracturing not in weakness but revelation. Jonah's competence, legal acuity, crisis poise, wove into her defenses, a human thread strengthening the Imperium's weave. Varun's eyes narrowed, calculating anew, while a legalist murmured to another. He parsed the ninth appendix in hours. What manner of mind? The barge's bloom deepened. Loyalty litigated not in isolation but forged in fire's near-fatal strike. Partnership scale gathered force, ancient law bending before it. Inside the tribunal hall, truth oaths ignited in azure flames, binding tongues to verity. Jonah stepped forward under constraint, unarmored, his voice steady as he invoked the conferral. "I offer standing not as conqueror but ally. Oaths to Imperium sovereignty, demonstrations as required." Solaria watched from the dais, strength unyielding, as Varun's faction arrayed their challenges, tactical hypotheticals drawn from Armada annals, loyalty probes laced with subtext. Jonah fielded them with multitasking grace, recalling glyph precedents while diagramming fleet maneuvers on a shared holoslate, adapting Quran vector calculus to Terran improvisation. A governor's probe on succession feints linked seamlessly to his earlier codex dive, patterns connecting like stars aligning. Legalists leaned in, crests flickering in bemused flares. One whispering, "He juggles doctrines as we juggle blades." Impossible endurance. Varun pressed harder, mandibles grinding. "Prove resilience, human. Simulate a breach under oath fire." Jonah endured the neural probe's sting without wince, outlining a defense that married Charon shield walls to human feints. Creative, unroaded. Sweat beaded his brow, yet optimism held. Collaboration turns breach to bulwark excellency. Solaria's crest warmed, his humility shone, no boast, merely capability unveiled. The tribunal murmured, Varun's coalition fracturing, two governors abstaining, eyes on Jonah with dawning regard. "The provision holds," the chief legalist conceded at last, voice grudging. "Conferral granted, heir secured." As oath sealed, Varun bowed curtly, retreating with venom veiled, but Solaria saw the shift. Respect seed planted amid conspiracy's ash. Jonah met her gaze, steady and unyielding, a human trait that both unsettled and anchored her amid the throne chamber's echoing silence. A holographic alert shattered it, blooming crimson across the dais. "Empress," the chamberlain's voice cracked. "Mutinies. House Curve's handiwork. Border governors in the Vale sector declare for Claymont Thorn. Outlying fleets turning saboteurs nodes active." Solaria's crest flared, spines rigidifying along her neck as she rose. Thorn, Varun's whispered favorite, a distant cousin with no claim but ancient blood. Bribes had flowed like venom from Curve's coffers, governors folding like brittle leaves. Her chain of command frayed at the edges, fleets meant to shield the Imperium now primed to strike inward. She silenced the murmurs with a raised talon. Varun, suppressing this. Now, the High Chancellor uncoiled from the shadows, his multifaceted eyes gleaming with feigned assurance. It shall be crushed, Majesty. My loyalists deploy at once, but as he strode out, doubt gnawed her resolve. Varun's delays had marked prior crises. His web of alliances prioritized power over precision. Jonah shifted beside her, his posture unchanging, yet she sensed the calculations flickering behind those unblinking eyes. Commander, she said, voice low. Your assessment? Send me in, he replied simply. No bravado, just fact. Technician guys. I've synced with your fleet schematics. Sabotage nodes are the linchpin. Disable them, and the mutineers lose fangs. Her advisors hissed. Humans meddling in Haran voids? Yet the logic pierced. Jonah's prior feats, quiet repairs amid court intrigues, hinted at depths Varun overlooked. Go, she commanded, but return whole. The Alliance demands it. Hours blurred into the void's cold vigil. From her command spire, Solaria tracked the incursion feeds, her claws scoring the armrest as Varun's forces clashed in sluggish probes. The third contingent's dreadnoughts drifted rogue, nodes pulsing green with override codes, weapons swiveling toward loyalist flanks. Varun's report droned. Resistance stiffens, Empress. We contain. A secondary alert pierced. Technician breach on the Varrock's Pride mutineer flagship. Her breath caught. Jonah, threading the chaos in a drab jumpsuit toolkit slung low. Feeds captured fragments, his form slipping past patrols, human gait unhurried amid the clamor of klaxon whales and venting plasma. He crouched at the first node cluster, spines of code weaving sabotage through the core. Alayans would brute force reroutes. Jonah multitasked, fingers dancing across interfaces while murmuring overrides into his learning the Karan lattice on the fly, adapting protocols midstream. A guard rounded the corner. Jonah pivoted, not with Karan ferocity, but a disarming gesture, palm up in feigned obeisance, voice pitching to mimic a servitor's timbre. The guard waved him on, oblivious. Solaria leaned closer to the hollow, crest pulsing. Humans endured siege shifts without falter. This one juggled infiltration, decryption, and deception as if plotting a stroll. Node by node, greens flickered to amber. First the Pride, then cascades through the contingent. Mutineers bellowed confusion as guns locked inert, drives stuttering. Jonah exfiltrated amid the unraveling, a shadow vanishing into shuttles loyalists scrambled to secure. By dawn, cycle, the revolt crumbled. Governors recanted under Armada guns, Thorn's phantom claim dissolving. Varun's triumph, hollow, his fleets had contained, Jonah had neutered. She summoned them to the War Council, throne elevated above the sprawl of admirals and aides. Varun entered last, mandibles clicking unease. The disloyal purged Majesty. Failure, Solaria cut, her voice thunder-veiled silk. Your delays invited this fracture. House Carev laughs while you contain echoes. Gasps rippled. No Empress had stripped a Chancellor so publicly. You are relieved of fleet command, effective now. Varun's spines wilted, eyes darting to Jonah, who stood impassive at her flank. A human? Over Karan blood? Competence over blood, she echoed the ancient rite, twisting it like a blade. Commander Jonah Hale, you are named Liaison of Fleet Security. Your authority spans operations. Advise, execute, preserve my chain. Jonah inclined his head, no flourish. Honored, Empress. Will fortify the nodes first. The court seethed as oaths bound him anew, but Solaria marked the shift. Admirals exchanging glances, not dismissal, but wary calculation. Varun retreated, his venom now laced with fracture, yet conspiracy coiled tighter. By eve council, opposition courtiers, Varun's tendrils unfurled a hollow scroll, projected lurid across the chamber, forged missives, intimate in tone. My Solaria, your strength stirs me beyond duty. Jonah, seals mimicked hers, timestamps weaving through private relays. Scandal, cried Lord Curve's proxy, a sallow governor. The Empress consorts with the ape in shadows, bartering throne for alien seed. Ancient law demands removal, blood purity, unbroken. The chamber erupted, calls for conclave rising like a tide. Solaria's crest burned, fury cracking her propriety's facade. Intimate, The forgeries stank of desperation, twisting her calculated proximity to Jonah into prurience. She silenced them with a gesture, spines fully erect. Forgeries insult our rights. But counsel from strength merits hearing. Turning to Jonah, voice steady. Liaison, speak to these accusations. He scanned the scrolls, pattern recognition etching his brow. Fabricated timestamps, cross-reference with node logs I just pulled. Origin traces to Varun's Subrium servers. Crude, but meant to provoke. Courtiers muttered. A human unraveling their web? Solaria seized it. Let records confirm. Meanwhile, I authorize joint strategy sessions. Liaison hails counsel elevates our defense, parity and purpose, if not blood. Protests swelled, but she held firm, eyes locking on Jonah's. The court reckoned now. Competence pierced their veils, forcing gaze upon the human who mended what Quran pride rent. Varun's faction recoiled, plotting anew, yet seeds of doubt flowered. Respect, reluctant, rooting amid the ash. In the sessions that followed, sealed in her strategium, barriers thinned. Jonah sketched node redundancies, blending Terran field hacks with Quran Armada grids, his endurance shining as cycles stretched without flagging. We layer human improvisation over your precision, he said. No lecture, just partnership. She countered with Imperium contingencies, learning his quiet read of tensions. The way Varun's aides stiffened at unmeant slights. One eve, as holomaps dimmed, she vented, they see weakness in you, in us. Propriety cracked, voice raw. He met her gaze again, humble, fire steady. They see threat and change. We prove otherwise together. Her crest softened, a personal tether forming amid political tempests. The mutiny had forged it, a partnership unwanted, now unbreakable. The court would bend or shatter, but competence demanded reckoning. Explosions rocked the crystalline spires of Karath Prime, shattering the dawn hush as breaching charges tore through the outer bulwarks. Solaria gripped the edge of her command days, her crest flaring rigid against the holographic cascade of alerts flooding the chamber. Report, she commanded, voice a whip crack amid the clamor of aides scrambling like frenzied insects. High Chancellor Varun's hologram flickered into view from the council vaults below, his scaled face a mask of feigned shock. Empress, rival houses, Drakan and Vesper, have allied with provincial insurgents. They're at the gates, demanding your abdication and the treaty's annulment. Human supremacists from the fringe worlds are coordinating the vanguard. Their drones are already piercing the lower corridors. Her mandibles clicked in fury. The treaty with the Terrans, cemented by Jonah Hale's binding as consort, had always been a powder rift. Varun had sown the whispers, rallying conservatives who saw humans as frail upstarts unfit for the Imperium's sacred bloodlines. Now they struck to sever it at the root. Solaria's gaze snapped to the chamber seals. Her guards formed a bristling phalanx, but the palace's labyrinthine defenses were optimized for naval blockades, not this terrestrial frenzy. A side feed bloomed. Jonah Hale, her human consort, already in the fray. He moved through the siege corridors like a shadow uncoiling, his Terran-issue harness humming with jury-rigged overrides. Guards flanked him. Quran elites, their plasma lances primed, but it was Jonah directing them, barking coordinates and flawless Quran laced with clipped Terran slang. Flank Alpha 7, suppress the drone swarm. I've got the breach conduit. Reroute power grids to Channel 3. Solaria watched, transfixed, as he multitasked the impossible, hacking a provincial siege bot's targeting matrix mid-stride, while directing fire teams across 3 sublevels via wrist-projected overlays. Quran officers hesitated a beat. Humans weren't built for such sustained neural load. Yet Jonah pressed on, sweat beading his brow but pace unflagging. He vaulted a barricade, improvising a pulse grenade from scavenged drone shards, the blast scattering a squad of human supremacists in powered exosuits. Their leader, a wild-eyed Terran radical, lunged with vibroblades. Jonah parried, twisted, and disarmed him in a blur of economical strikes, his field engineer's mind already scanning the fallen gear for tactical salvage. Her crest twitched involuntarily. Competence, not bravado. The human juggled siege maps, ally vitals, and improvised countermeasures as if it were a morning drill. Her own tacticians faltered under half that strain. Alarms wailed closer. Intruders breaching inner ring, a guard captain rasped. Solaria's chamber shuddered as corridors buckled. Varun's hologram smirked faintly before cutting out. traitor exposed. "Evacuate the Empress," the captain bellowed. "No." Solaria's decree silenced them. "Hale is en route." "Hold." He was. Feeds showed Jonah leading the counter-assault, weaving through smoke-choked vents with a car and demolition squad. He adapted their rigid breach protocols on the fly, spotting a pattern in the insurgents' drone relays that her analysts had missed, cross-referencing it with Terran swarm tactics from some forgotten colony skirmish. Pattern match. They're slaving to a provincial governor's yacht in orbit. Jam the uplink, now. A trooper complied, and half the enemy vanguard went inert. Solaria's guards exchanged glances, their crests dipping in wary awe. A human, out enduring their shifts, reading chaos they navigated by rote. The chamber doors buckled under plasma fire. Insurgents poured in. Drakenhouse fanatics mingled with human radicals howling for the impure consort's head. Her elites clashed, lances flashing, but numbers pressed. Then Jonah burst through a side grate, hauling a wounded Karan sergeant, his harness scorched but grip steady. "Empress, chamber secure." He dropped the sergeant behind cover, pivoted, and unleashed a repurposed drone cannon, shredding the vanguard. Supremacists faltered, their leader from the corridor snarling, "Traitor to Terra." Jonah felled him with a precise stun pulse, then multitasked triage, patching the sergeant's wound while vectoring reinforcements. Solaria met his eyes amid the melee, sweat-streaked, resolute. No plea for praise, just a nod. "The council vaults," she said. "Varun, secured your path." He handed her a data slate, overlaid with purge codes he'd cracked en route. Partnership, forged in fire. The siege crumbled within the hour. Jonah's defenses held the palace core while Armada strike cruisers glassed the insurgent staging grounds. Bodies cooled in the corridors. Varun's faction lay exposed, their comms logs damning. In the command chamber, now a warren of flickering hollows and bloodied banners, Solaria stood tall, her crest held firm, authority unbroken. "By imperial prerogative," she intoned, broadcasting empire-wide, "I invoke the right of purge. High Chancellor Varun and his conspirators are attainted. Their houses forfeit." Gasps rippled through the feeds. Backlash instant, provincial lords decrying human taint. She pressed on. "Commander Jonah Hale is elevated. Consort General, he who shielded the throne, claims stake in its defense." Murmurs swelled to outrage. Conservative crests flared in defiance. Yet evidence streamed. Jonah's logs, showing human ingenuity meshed with Karan steel, turning route to victory. Solaria felt the fracture lines, duty cracking into something rawer. Jonah stood beside her, silent, scanning residual threats, humble even now. The High Council convened amid the rubble, holograms of surviving lords materializing like specters. Varun's seat gaped empty. His allies cowed or fled. "The edict stands," Solaria declared. "Ratify the conferral." Debate erupted. Vesper's proxy sneered. "A soft-skinned ape is general? Our Armada traditions. Traditions that nearly felled us," cut in Admiral Kresh, a battle-scarred veteran whose fleet had rallied under Jonah's improvised orbital vectors. "The humans saw the drone lattice when our augments blinded us to it." He endured 12 rotations without falter. Ratify. Votes tallied, narrow but binding. Provinces pledged anew. Draken's rivals, witnessing the cohesive defense feeds, sent oaths of fealty. "The Imperium endures," one governor transmitted. Crest bowed. Through unexpected steel, Solaria exhaled, the weight shifting. Jonah's presence anchored her, not as subordinate, but counterweight. In the throne vault's shadowed sanctum, away from prying hollows, they unveiled the reformed charter. Solaria unrolled the ancestral scroll, its glyphs glowing under right lamps. "Sovereign authority remains mine," she said. Mandibles firm, yet consort rights integrate. Shared command in crisis, veto on succession pacts, safeguards against faction purges. Jonah traced a clause, his touch steady. "Preserves the dynasty, tempers the court." Mutual. His eyes held hers, reading the subtext she rarely voiced. Trust, earned in blood. They inscribed it jointly, her claw beside his finger, sealing with imperial wax and Terran biolock. No crowds, no fanfare, just the hum of ancient wards witnessing equals. "Consort General," she murmured, crest softening fully for the first time. Ruler's burden shared. He smiled faintly. No arrogance. Partnership, Empress. As it should be. They emerged to the Armada docks, shared commands arrayed, her throne yacht flanked by his retrofitted frigate. Court bowed deeper now, whispers turning to respect. The galaxy watched. A Quran Imperium. Unbroken. Evolved. She was born to rule, and learned that true power is finding an equal.